The only recourse is to go out on the streets and march. That is the only recourse.
It was quite the eventful weekend, not only with the Super Bowl, but also with the top of the Republican Party, JD Vance and Elon Musk, going on strange Twitter tirades that prompted former Republican lawyer George Conway to go on MSNBC and call for the nation to take to the streets in protest. It was quite the bombshell segment, which is surprising from Joe and Mika. I got the whole clip here for you in a second, but if you're liking the video, make sure to like the video and double check that you're subscribed. First, I wanted to give you guys some context and show you what JD Vance tweeted that set this whole thing off. After multiple judges blocked Donald Trump's executive orders, JD Vance tweeted this: "If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the Attorney General in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal." JD Vance using her in this context is about as feminist as he's gonna get. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. I don't know how JD Vance doesn't know this, but a judge blocking an executive order is what the judges are supposed to do. There's a thing called checks and balances in the United States, and the executive branch can't just do whatever it wants. This is shocking to hear from JD Vance, as Gabe Sanchez points out here. This idiot went to law school and then became a lawyer, a point that Representative Adam Schiff pointed out. JD, we both went to law school, but we don't have to be lawyers to know that ignoring court decisions we don't like puts us on a dangerous path to lawlessness. We just have to swear an oath to the Constitution and mean it. Adam Schiff's been getting lots of zingers off recently, and he's not the only one. Here's George Conway on MSNBC giving Joe and Mika exactly the kind of energy that's necessary for this kind of moment.
But this happens. There are challenges. Some things get through, some things don't. But you don't have a vice president. I guess Spiro Agnew probably did. But you don't have a vice president going out there going, oh, the court can't do this. They can't stop our legitimate power, when, of course, again, the Supreme Court determines what the executive branch's legitimate powers are and what they are not. And it has been that way for 240 years, has it not?
Yeah, absolutely. And, JD Vance is an embarrassment to the law school that I attended. But the fact of the matter is he's telling us something that we should have already known. And last week I said it. They are not going to obey court orders. They have decided that they are going to push the boundaries on executive power by basically infringing on the Article 1 power of Congress. And they are violating statutory, they're writing the Constitution, the text of the Constitution in the birthright citizenship issue. They are violating the text of statutes by having DOJ run around and do all the things that have been doing the executive orders. There's no reason that this government that has decided not to obey the laws and the Constitution of the United States is going to obey a court order. And as you know, Joe, having practiced law, there's really only one way that courts can enforce their orders when somebody is being contumacious and refusing to obey an order. And that's to send the U.S. Marshals out to take somebody in and to hold them in contempt or to otherwise enforce court orders. Well, who does the U.S. Marshals Service work for? The U.S. Marshals Service is part of the United States Department of Justice. It reports to Donald J. Trump. And what's going to happen here, mark my words, is that at some point, they are going to basically tell the United States Marshal Service, do not enforce any of these orders. We will not obey them, and you are not to enforce them. And once that happens, I hope it doesn't happen, but I know in my heart that it will. Our 236-year experiment in the federal rule of law, in democratic self-governance for the United States of America, in American constitutionalism, is essentially over.
Yeah. Let's just take a look to Joe's point here. President Biden signed 162 executive orders during his...
And then Mika interrupts to complain about how Joe Biden got stopped by the courts all the time and he didn't break the Constitution. Yeah, we know, Mika, no president has. That's why this is so concerning. If the executive branch suddenly decides that it's not going to obey court orders, well, it's not exactly like Donald Trump and his gang of goons is going to send the cops after themselves. They're just going to say no. And if that happens, that would be the first time since the beginning of our nation that the executive branch challenges the legitimacy of the legislative branch. Something so important to the Founding Fathers, it's literally Article 1. It's damn near the first thing they put on paper. So it's not just a, hey, Biden didn't get to do that thing. It's a nobody got to do that thing. And for some reason, it's George Conway, ex-husband of Raptor-esque Kellyanne Conway, that is sounding the alarm here on the Morning Joe show. What he says next, I'm pretty sure gets him kicked off the show.
To defy a court order, to see what they can get away with, to dare the judiciary and the rest to try to stop them, and talk to us about how that would play out. What recourse could Democrats, the courts, the public have?
The only recourse is to go out on the streets and march. That is the only recourse. The courts have no mechanism to enforce their orders other than through the United States Marshal Service, and thus through the Department of Justice, thus through the executive branch. The reason why we obey court orders is because the executive branch complies with court orders. If the executive branch does not comply with court orders and makes a point of saying that we will not comply with court orders, the rule of law, as far as the federal government is concerned, is over. And that is something we need to start focusing on and discussing, because that's where these people will go. There is no logical stopping point for them. And this is, the only recourse will be for people to get out and say, we want the rule of law. We want a government that obeys the law. And that's going to require people to go out on the streets, because there is no other alternative.
George Conway, thank you so much for being with us. John Meacham.
George Conway just told people to take to the streets to defy this. That's how serious this situation is. There's no legal recourse that doesn't go through Donald Trump. And if he's already saying that he's not going to obey these court orders, well, you can't just send another court order. He's going to say no. So we have an ex-Republican lawyer telling us that we're about to witness the breakdown of the rule of law. And what does liberal Morning Joe Scarborough do? Thank you, George Conway, for being with us. I mean, I don't know, maybe his time just ran out. But it's interesting to me how before he says everybody should go out and protest, here's the panel. After he says that, here's the panel. The only person who's no longer on the panel is George Conway. It seems like what he said spooked Joe and Mika a little bit. And it's honestly insane that ex-Republicans like George Conway and Michael Steele are the ones that are rightfully sounding the alarm, while established Democrats are pretending like there's nothing they can do. Here's Hakeem Jeffries just yesterday.
I'm trying to figure out what leverage we actually have. What leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have?
What are we supposed to do? We're just a bunch of babies. The Democrats can't do anything. Listen, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember when Obama had a supermajority and Mitch McConnell was the king of obstruction. Not a damn thing got through that old turtle. And what leverage did he have? That's an absolutely insane thing for the minority leader to say, especially when there are things in the Senate and the House that the Democrats can do to gum up the works and slow down this absolute gutting of our national government. Things like, in solidarity, all voting no on his confirmation, calling for holds, doing quorum calls, using the language and the mechanisms of Congress against itself. Because if you have no power to change the rules, you can use the rules as your power. We all just watched the Super Bowl. We all know that timeouts are used strategically, not just because they want to chat in the middle of the game. The Democrats should be using the same playbook that Mitch McConnell laid out just a few years ago. They know what to do, and they're choosing not to do it. And that should concern all of us. So yeah, I agree with George Conway here. It seems like outrage is the only way that we're going to get this train wreck to stop. I'm Tony Hinderman with Really American, and I'll catch you next time.